All right, guys, we are trying a new format here, but we have a new build for at the table. This is going to be a Footy class RC sailboat. This is specifically the green Hornet model that you can find at 3dprintedradioyachts.com. I'll have a link down in the description. But here we've got all the stuff that I need. I've got some aluminum tubing, some carbon fiber rod, and some 1/8 by 3/8 balsa. So first things first, the end of the bow here printed a little funny just with being in vase mode. It wasn't able to fill in that print. So what we're going to do is just clean it up and get it ready for putting a cap over the top of that, and that way we don't get water inside and drown our boat. A little bit of a rough edge here, so I'm just going to take a sandpaper on the end of a popsicle stick and just sand that smooth, real nice and pretty. And get some test fitting done. I want to make sure, like, I've never done this before. This is the most intense 3D printed thing I've ever done, so I want to make sure I do it right. So we're making sure that I know which side of this sleeve goes where. So because it's just a single wall print, there's not much surface area to glue to. So this sleeve will sit halfway in one end and halfway in the other, and that'll be my gluing surface and hold everything together. So with it figured out which way is which, I'm going to mark the forward and aft ends. That way I can make sure I put it in the right way when I'm gluing. All right, so I'm going to get all the clamps because, my word, it's going to require a lot. And we're just going to mark halfway down here so that I know exactly how far in to seat it so that I have plenty of room for putting the second side on. We're going to be using some 15-minute epoxy. This is just your standard hobby grade stuff. I purchased this from alofthobbies.com. Love those guys. And I just used a bit of, when I mix my epoxy, instead of using a cup, I just use a little bit of blue tape on the table. Now I'm going to take some scrap pieces from my test prints and use those to test how well the glue holds up. And I'm actually going to be testing the 15-minute epoxy as well as some medium viscosity CA glue. Get a nice bead of glue on there, and then we're just going to stick it on and clamp it down with a couple of clamps. And we're going to let that set up. And then we're going to see, the build recommends the epoxy, but we're going to see what medium viscosity CA glue does for us. So we're just going to put a little bit on there and same sort of thing. All right. It's had plenty of time to set up, about 20-30 minutes, and seems to hold pretty well. It maintains flexibility, which is good. So we're gonna go forward. We're actually gonna stick with the CA, or not the CA, excuse me. We're gonna stick with the epoxy just to make sure that we get a nice firm seal. Now I'm gonna just take this half strip of tape and wrap it right around the edge, and that way any squeeze out of the glue doesn't really make a mess of our nice clean outside. And I can, it'll just come off with the tape. I'm going to do that to both ends. And you saw I folded myself a little grab tab there so that I could peel it off easier when all is said and done. And then you'll notice I ended up changing which side I had marked as the forward and the aft sections on that sleeve just because I found it fit better the other way. And then using just a bamboo barbecue skewer, we're gonna smear on about a 1/4 inch wide stripe of glue around this edge, and that'll give plenty of glue to hold it in place. I'm going to line it up on the top first with my 2 marks and everything, make sure it's in the corners properly, and then just start clamping it down as I go around, adjusting where it sits as we go to make sure that it's sitting nice and even. You can see that it's not quite even there, so I'm going to use my fingers and hold it in place and then get the clamps to really lock it down. You'll have to excuse my voice. I'm getting over a cold. And there we go. Tons of clamps. All right, time to set that down and wait. Look how pretty. All right, it's been 20-30 minutes now. We're going to, oh, look, a little bit of glue goes out and stuck to my clamps. All right, we're going to get that off. Clean up some of the excess bubbles of glue. We're going to just take my razor knife and clean those up. That way we have a nice clean surface. There are a couple gaps here in the corners, but I figure we can deal with those later. This is what I like about using the tape. It just peels off in one big go and doesn't make a huge mess, and then I'm not wasting all those little plastic cups people like to use. Another bit of glue, And same thing, just a 1/4 inch bead all the way around to make sure that it fits nicely, or that we smear a lot of glue in there. And then once we get it all in, this half was a little bit trickier to put in, just given the nature of we couldn't really compress it down like we could when we put it in the first half. And then I'm taking these small strips of tape and I'm just bridging between the two halves to help hold it together. The tape doesn't really want to stick for some reason. I think the fumes of the CA off-gassing are causing it to come loose a bit. But there you go. There's the two halves of the Footy class Green Hornet waiting. It looks very pretty. There's a size comparison for you. So it's about 12 inches long, give or take. I forget exactly. We're going to get the tape removed and cleaned up and look at our edges. Make sure there is a weird little gap there. We'll deal with that. Couple little squeeze out bubbles that can just clean up with a knife. But yeah, I'm really pleased with this. This is my first 3D printed RC vehicle and first use of vase mode, and I'm pleased with how it turned out. Really good print. I did. I'll link down in the description my build log on RCGroups, but I've been putting all the details so you guys can find all that there if you want to print one yourself. So yeah, stay tuned for part 2.